Listen and understand English, B1.
Hi, Jane. This is Tanya. I'm calling to make arrangements for the concert on Saturday. I can't believe you've never been to the arena before. I often go at the weekend. There isn't just the arena concert venue. There are also lots of other things to do. Shopping, restaurants, exhibitions. I'm giving Melissa and Sarah a lift. So, shall we all meet up for a coffee before the concert? I'll give you directions. OK, listen carefully. As you walk through the main entrance, you come to a square with a big fountain in the middle. This is where people usually arrange to meet up, and sometimes they have live music here. Beyond the square, on Main Avenue, on your right, there are several restaurants. And opposite these, on your left, is an exhibition centre. There used to be a cinema here, but they moved it when they finished building the arena. So, there are several coffee shops to choose from. One near the fountain, and one in the north end of the building. But I suggest that we go to the one at the end of Main Avenue, because it'll probably be less busy than the others. It's right at the end, after you pass the art gallery on the right. So, shall we all meet there at 7 o'clock? Then, after we've had a coffee, to get into the arena, we just need to go through the shopping centre, which will be on our right once we go back down Main Avenue. It can be a bit tempting, but there's no other way to get there, as the arena is the other side of it. Oh, and there are toilets beside the entrance if you need them. And then, after the concert, they open the door opposite, and you can go straight out into the car park, which is very convenient. Let me know if you can make it for 7. I'm looking forward to seeing you. It's been a while.
First of all, welcome to our activity summer camp. I hope you enjoy all the activities we have on offer. We start our tour at the outdoor theater here, where we hold many of our evening activities. From here, you can see our various water sport activities. Directly in front of the campsite, on the edge of the lake, we have the kayaking center. And then in front of the beach, we have an area reserved for diving. Swimming isn't permitted here. If you like racket sports, just behind the beach you can practice badminton in the large building. That's quite popular in the evenings. We also have some outdoor tennis courts. We used to have basketball in the building too, but now you can play it on the court behind the building. And if these activities make you hungry, the path from there takes you straight to the cafe and dining hall. However, we'll continue our walk along the lake shore, and I'd like to draw your attention to 2 other areas. One is this part of the lake, which is perfect for swimming, but for safety reasons, only when an instructor is present. Unfortunately, we can't offer sailing as an option here this year. And I also want to point out, just across the lake, a track for cycling. Some people in the past have also gone running on the track, but there were a few accidents because there isn't enough space for runners and cyclists, so now running isn't allowed. So now let's take this path here, towards the tennis courts. On our left, you can see there's a football field. Gary's our coach, and he'll be organizing tournaments during the week. He'll arrive tomorrow because he's taking part in a rugby game today. And now, if we walk up to the right of the tennis courts, we can see the archery field, surrounded by trees. And in the building just to the right of this, you can hire equipment for the archery and buy snacks and drinks. It also has some table tennis tables, so you can go there and have a game if the weather turns bad.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the Council for agreeing to this meeting and for welcoming us here today to explain to you our plans for Pinewood Centre. Our aim is to make Pinewoods a place where people of all ages can come and enjoy their free time. The centre will feature our Treetops Challenge, only for the brave and fearless. For the less brave, and for families with children, there will be adventure playgrounds, indoor and outdoor, and a feeding area for farm animals, and we will also offer cycle trails through the woods. I'll give you an overview of Pinewoods first, and then tell you more about each area in more detail. This first slide shows the overall layout of the centre, and where all the activities will be situated. As you can see from the map, the entrance to this attraction will be on the south side. As visitors enter from the car park, they will walk along this path, leading them to the cafe and gift shop. The gift shop will be where tickets are on sale, and therefore needs to be near the entrance. So this building here on the right will be the cafe, and the building on the left will be the gift shop. There will also be a picnic field behind the cafe for the warmer months. It's the area just to the right of the cafe as you look at the map. And in the bottom right-hand corner of the picnic field, we're planning to have a barbecue area where people can hire a barbecue and bring their own food to cook. It'll be great for parties. In summer, we plan to have bands performing here in the evenings. To the west of the gift shop is where the Treetops Challenge will take place. There's a path here winding through the forest, and up in the trees there will be all sorts of high-level adventure apparatus. Rope swings, awesome rope bridges and tunnels, and zip wires where you can fly way above the forest floor. This adventure experience will only be open to those aged 15 and over. Beyond the Treetops Challenge, there will be an adventure playground. To get to it, you go along this path from the entrance until you reach the crossroads. Then you turn left. The young children's playground will have a fence around it, making it safer and keeping them away from the lake. The indoor play area, only for the very young, will be on the east side of the farm, near the cafe and just inside the picnic area. And finally, let's turn our attention back to this area here, where the paths meet and form a crossroads. This path, leading to the east end of the farm, will take our visitors to the area which houses the farm animals. Children will be able to watch the animals being fed and cared for, and in some instances they will be able to feed the animals themselves. The sheep will be in this first area on the right here, directly opposite the pigs, and the goats will go at the very end there. We haven't quite decided on the other areas yet. So, those are our plans. We hope they will be approved, and we look forward to welcoming you back in the not-too-distant future to see the final result.
I'm going to talk about a hobby I'd like to take up in the future. I really want to learn ballroom dancing. This is because I love Latin music, and I love the way the dancers move and shake. I also want to give myself a challenge and learn something new. Watching ballroom dancing always makes me feel excited. I don't think it'll be too difficult for me, because I already do ballet and tap dancing. I like learning new steps. For example, I really want to learn the tango or the samba because these are exciting and look good to people watching. I've tried flamenco dancing, but I'm not very good. I'm also worried about finding the right dance partner because I'll be a little slow to learn in the beginning, so I might fall over sometimes. In fact, I'll probably fall over quite a lot.
I'm going to tell you about a leisure activity I'd like to do in the future. I'd really like to learn how to play the acoustic guitar. This is because I love music, and I love the beautiful sound this kind of guitar makes. I also want to give myself a challenge and learn something new. I don't think it'll be too difficult for me, because I already know how to read music. I play the piano, but I'm not very good. I think playing the guitar will be easier. I also like the fact that you can carry a guitar around easily and play it anywhere. For example, I can play it in the park or on the beach. I can't think about learning it at the moment because I'm too busy. I need to focus on my studies and prepare for my exams. I think that I'd like to take up the guitar next year. All my exams will be over by then, so I'll have more time, and more money too. In fact, I'll need money to pay for lessons. I think that learning the guitar would change my life in a positive way. If I learn to play it really well, I'll start my own band. I'd love to perform live on stage at a concert. I think that would be fantastic.
Do you generally enjoy trying new things?
Yes, I would say I like to try new things, meet new people. It's something that is very important to me.
Is there any other activity you would like to try one day?
Yes, I've always thought about windsurfing. I'm a big fan of the ocean and love water sports, so it's next on my list of things to do.
Justin Bieber's rise to fame is an interesting story. He was interested in music from a very early age, and he taught himself how to play a whole selection of musical instruments, which I think is rare in youngsters these days. Like a lot of teenagers who want to be pop stars, he learned the guitar. But whereas very few of those teenagers put in the effort needed to be successful, Bieber, on the other hand, not only learned how to play the piano as well, but also mastered the drums and even the trumpet. One day he hopes to learn the violin. He was clearly gifted, and his mother used to arrange for him to take part in local competitions. He came second in one, and his mother posted his performance on YouTube. She kept posting other clips of him singing, and soon these attracted a number of fans who started following him, though at this point he still hadn't found fame. His big break came when a music executive came across these videos by accident when he was looking for a performance by a different artist. He immediately recognized Bieber's talent and gave the teenager a contract with his recording company. His first record was a worldwide hit. He shot to fame in just 2 years and is now a global superstar, one of the most well-known performers the world has ever seen.
I wouldn't like to be famous. I would hate people to recognize me all the time. You would always be followed by journalists and never able to have a private life. Being followed on a good day, when you've been to the hairdresser and are wearing your best jeans, is perhaps acceptable, but can you imagine how it would make you feel on a bad day?
I would love to be famous. I would adore all the attention and the special treatment. Everywhere I went, people would know my name, and I wouldn't need to queue anymore. The best part, though, would be meeting other famous people. I can imagine that would be so interesting. They would come to my private yacht, and I would visit their mansions.
So, you've been a famous singer for over 3 decades now. What advice would you give to someone wanting to become famous?
Well, my first piece of advice is don't try and become famous. Instead, focus on being good at something. Choose something you enjoy and then work hard at doing well in that area.
What did you do to become such a successful singer?
Well, a good way to be the best is to learn from the experts. Find people you admire in your area of interest. Try to get as close to them as possible. Observe them carefully. If possible, talk to them. Ask lots of questions. Don't copy them, but try to learn from them. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try something new.
Being the best is one thing, but how did you get yourself known?
Getting yourself known is indeed another skill you must work on. One thing is for sure, Nobody is going to come to you. You have to make opportunities for yourself. You have a product to sell, and the product is you. It's much easier to do that these days, especially with the internet around. Many people use social media for this.
Any other piece of advice?
Yes. The last thing I would say is, if you want to be really successful in something, you will most likely experience a certain amount of failure. People who fail at some point often say that the experience has been a great lesson and helped them on the road to success. Try to learn from these moments instead of being frightened of them. In fact, some of the most successful people have often failed countless times before reaching their end goal. What makes them successful is that they kept on trying regardless.
If you're going to take filmmaking seriously, you need to learn how to get the best from your camcorder. Many people use camcorders these days to make short videos of their friends and family, and often people just use the automatic functions. These work well enough for those types of occasion, but if you want to take a more professional approach for the production of your short film, you should have some knowledge of the camcorder's manual functions too. In this tutorial, I will start by discussing 3 of the most basic functions: the focus, the iris, and the zoom. The focus control is usually the manual focus ring at the front of the lens, well, certainly with professional cameras. It's a particularly useful function if used correctly. The ring turns anti-clockwise for a more distant focus and clockwise for a closer focus. Next, I will talk about the iris ring. This is also located on the lens. It manages how much light appears through the lens through the adjustable opening called the aperture. As you let more light into the shot, it naturally becomes brighter. Finally, I will talk about the zoom function. Many people use this function, and it's often overused. Used in moderation, however, this very popular feature can be a really useful tool. It moves your perspective closer or further away from your chosen subject. I would advise, however, that whilst shooting a long zoom, you use a tripod.
So, welcome to Filmmakers Club. I hope you're excited at the thought of making a film and that you're bursting with great ideas. I've put you all into groups, so here's what you're going to do. Now, you might think the first thing that you need to do is to come up with an idea for a story, but even before that, you need to think about what type of film you want to make. Remember that a film is really a story in pictures. There are lots of ways of telling a story, so choose a style of film that suits the talents of the group. If you have talented artists, but no good writers or actors, you might want to make your film in the style of a cartoon or some other kind of animation. Last year, a group made an excellent film using Lego bricks. So, having decided that, you can start to think of your idea for the story. Think about the movies you like to watch. What is it that makes them interesting? Is it the characters? The plot? As regards plot, my advice is don't be too ambitious. Don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. The simplest ideas are often the ones that work the best. Initially, you just need to find the basic concept. You can fill in the details later. It's a good idea to keep a notebook in your pocket and carry it everywhere. You never know when a great idea will suddenly come to you, and the more ideas the better, in my opinion. The next stage is to write the screenplay. For this, you need to divide the story up into a series of scenes. For each scene, the screenplay should begin with a short description of where it takes place and the time of day, that is, day or night. Then the rest consists of the script, the lines the actors will speak, and it should also describe the camera movements and give directions to the actors about how they should move. Before you can start filming, you need to prepare a storyboard of your film to help everyone involved to imagine the scenes clearly and to understand what you are trying to achieve. This is similar to a comic book version of your film, but without speech balloons. And at this point, you need to appoint a director. This is a major role, and it's vital that he or she is a good communicator, as they are the key link between the actors and the rest of the team. This person will have responsibility for the creative side of the project. He or she will have the final say in the choice of the main actors and in directing the action of the film. That brings me to the next stage, casting your film, finding the actors. Don't just rely on your friends. Be creative. Perhaps you could advertise on social media, or if your film needs a doctor, perhaps you could ask one from the local hospital if they could spare a couple of hours for you. And then, before filming finally starts, you will need to assign other jobs, such as director of photography. In your case, this will be the person who operates the camera, someone in charge of sound and music, and someone in charge of costumes and props, including furniture and any other objects needed, and also someone to look after hair and makeup. But we'll look at these roles in more detail in our next session.
Well, for this task, I'd like to talk about Bill Gates. He's the brilliant computer programmer who created Microsoft and the Windows operating system. I first saw Bill Gates on television in 2001. He was talking about Windows XP, which came out that year. I remember thinking that he is the richest man in the world, but if you look at him, you'd never know that. He just looks like a typical computer programmer. I like Bill Gates because he's responsible for bringing computers to millions of family homes around the world with his Windows operating system. This made computers easier to use for everyone, and also at a price that many families could afford. I also like him because he was the world's youngest self-made billionaire at the time. If he could do it, I like to think I could do it too. Finally, I admire him because he's very generous and uses his money to help people. He has given away a huge amount of his money to charity, and I believe he plans to give most of it away in the end. I think this is an excellent idea, and I hope this can show other rich and powerful people that they should also help others.
Well, the famous person I'm going to describe is David Beckham. He was a footballer who played for Manchester United, and he also played for England. I first saw him play for United when I was only 7, so that was probably in about 2002. I remember it as one of the most exciting days in my life. David Beckham became famous because he was a very talented footballer. His speciality was scoring amazing goals from free kicks. But he wasn't well known only for his football skills. He became even more famous when he married a pop star, Victoria, one of the Spice Girls. And another reason for his fame was his good looks and his style. I think almost every boy in the world wanted to have a David Beckham haircut. I know I did. I adored him as a boy because I was mad about football and he was my hero. The reason why I still like him is that, in spite of his fame, he behaves like a normal guy. I heard a story from someone whose car was broken down in the middle of the countryside. And then a car stopped and a man got out and asked him if he needed a push. It was David Beckham.
This creature is found in the mountains of Central Africa. It has black hair all over its body, which is much thicker than that of other members of the species. This means that it can live in colder temperatures. There are only about 900 of these apes in the wild. A lot of the green plants they eat have been destroyed, and they have also been killed in the past for their fur.
This creature lives in the ocean from Australia up to Japan. Many of them are quite small, with a body that grows up to 5 centimeters long, and they have long tentacles or arms. Its name comes from the bright blue rings that show up when it's frightened. You need to be careful in the sea around them as they are very poisonous.
These creatures live mainly in desert areas and can survive in both mountains and valleys. Their tails help them to balance when they are climbing or sleeping in trees. Their black and yellow coats help them to hide in the places where they live. Unfortunately, there are only about 250 of these beautiful big cats left in the wild today.
This strange-looking animal lives in wet areas and comes from the area south of the tropics in China. There are very few in the wild now. As you can see, it has antlers like most deer, but it has a neck like a camel and hooves or feet like a cow. They eat mainly grass and live partly on land and partly in water.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a project I've done about the mountain gorilla. I think it's a truly fascinating animal. They originate in Africa, Central Africa, in fact. So now I'm going to talk a little about where they live. As you can probably guess, and as you can see in this first photo, their name reflects the environment they live in, tropical mountain forests. Now, just like all other apes, they build nests out of leaves. But they don't make their nests high up as other species do. Mountain gorillas make them on the ground instead, and they sleep wherever they end their day, and they rarely sleep in the same bed twice. So, I'll move on to talk about the physical features of the mountain gorilla. In other words, what it looks like. So, here are some more photographs on screen for you all to have a look at. This gorilla here on the left is a male gorilla. We know that he's an older male gorilla because of the color of his coat. As you can see, his coat is gray. He's called a silverback. Younger male gorillas are called blackbacks, and there's an obvious reason for that. Yes, a young adult male has a black coat. As he gets older, his coat turns from black to gray. Next, I'm going to tell you a little about the diet of the mountain gorilla. Interestingly, mountain gorillas are herbivores. In other words, they survive on a diet of plants. As you can see from this next picture, this gorilla is eating leaves. They also eat fruit and flowers. They occasionally eat insects too, but only when they're very hungry. And it might interest you to know that mountain gorillas very rarely drink water, even though they live in a very warm climate. It appears they get all the water they need from plants. I'd like to conclude by talking about some of the threats that mountain gorillas face. They are in serious danger of disappearing from our world altogether. Let's have a look at 2 reasons why they're in such danger. And both of these reasons are connected to human activity. Firstly, people are damaging the mountain forests where these gorillas live. They're cutting down the trees to build farms and towns. Mountain gorillas live in close family groups, and this means that it's difficult for them to get enough to eat in the small areas they now have to live in. Secondly, gorillas are also suffering as a result of hunting. Sadly, some people find and kill them to sell. So, it's a very sad situation indeed for these beautiful animals.
Good morning, everyone. In today's lecture, I want to talk to you about a very unpopular animal here in Britain. In fact, you could say that it's one of our least loved animals. It's called the American bullfrog. And yes, it does in fact come from America, the east of America to be exact. And it was brought to Britain in the early 19th century, so you could say that it's been here for quite a long time. It wasn't brought here on purpose, it actually arrived in a big container of aquatic plants. In other words, it was accidentally introduced into Britain. Now, I'll tell you a little about its appearance. The American bullfrog is a very large and ugly species of frog. And when I say it's large, I mean large. Interestingly, female American bullfrogs are usually much larger than the males. In fact, they can weigh up to 750 grams, whereas the males only go up to about 600 grams. Take a look at its head. It's really broad and flat, isn't it? And you can see its mouth just here. That's quite large too. Now, both the male and the female American bullfrogs have green or brown bodies and have dark spots on the top. But there's one important difference between them. The male's throat is yellow, but the female has a white one instead. And the other difference is their eardrums, here, just behind their eyes. Those of the male are much larger than the females. So let's move on to why we so dislike the American bullfrog. Well, this is because it has threatened our own native species of frogs. Firstly, it breeds very quickly indeed. For example, female bullfrogs can lay up to 25,000 eggs every single season. And secondly, the American bullfrog is very greedy. In fact, they eat just about anything they can put into their mouths. As well as other frogs, they eat insects, fish, and have even been known to eat birds and snakes. So, in other words, they eat the food sources of our own native species. Thirdly, they carry a disease that is dangerous to other frogs. And finally, they don't just damage our natural world, they cause financial damage too. Around £100,000 has been spent monitoring the American bullfrog in the wild. So, as scientists, we can learn a lesson from this about the dangers of introducing any living species into a new environment.
Okay, everyone. I think we're ready to make a start. Now, when you think of a dangerous animal, what do you think of? A tiger, perhaps? Or maybe a leopard? Most people think that all dangerous animals live on land, but in fact, some of the most dangerous animals on the planet live in our seas and oceans. I'm going to talk today about one of these, the box jellyfish. There are different types of box jellyfish, and they are found in warm coastal seas anywhere from the Indian Ocean to as far north as Japan, but the most dangerous ones are found in the oceans around Australia. Okay, so now let's examine what these box jellyfish look like. There are no prizes for guessing why it's called a box jellyfish. You can see that it's shaped like a box or a cube, with 4 sides and rounded corners. And you can also see that its body is light blue. So, let's take a look at the tentacles of the box jellyfish more closely. It's got 15 of these growing from each of the 4 corners of the box. Now, you may be surprised to learn that these tentacles can grow to a length of 3 meters. And another surprising thing is its large number of eyes. That's 6 eyes on each of its 4 sides, so 24 altogether. So now let's move on to talk about the sting of a box jellyfish. What is it? Well, a jellyfish has a lot of tentacles, and each tentacle has thousands of cells, which can produce a poison. If the tentacles come into contact with a fish or a person, they stick to their skin. If the tentacles are very long, they are in contact with a lot of the body, giving a bad sting which hurts terribly. This can be dangerous to the victim. There are 2 ways that people can die as the result of a jellyfish sting. Firstly, a very severe sting can cause a person to have a heart attack. This can happen within minutes. Secondly, sometimes a swimmer goes into shock and can't make it back to the beach because they are in such extreme pain. If they're in the water alone, they'll die. And now I'd like to conclude with advice on how to help someone who has been stung by a box jellyfish. If they have had a heart attack, of course the most important thing is to try to revive them first of all. And then, the best thing to help is vinegar. Yes, the same vinegar you use when you're cooking. Many Australian beaches keep bottles of it near the jellyfish warning signs. You should pour a bottle over the tentacles for 30 seconds, and then the tentacles can be removed. However, if you get stung and don't have any vinegar, you should pour seawater on the skin. This will help to ease the pain before you can get further medical help.
What can governments do to prevent illegal hunting?
There are two things the government can do to prevent illegal hunting. The first is to be more serious about punishing hunters. For example, they could...
Should the government provide more money for zoos?
They definitely should. It seems to me that zoos need money now more than ever. Many of them have very old facilities for the animals.
How might we be able to protect wildlife in the future?
Well, in the future, it might be a good idea to use technology to track where wild animals are.
Is there any difference in how children learn about wildlife now than in the past?
There's a big difference, I think. In the past, we used to go on more field trips to places to see wild animals, but now we mostly just see them on the internet.
What should be done to people caught hunting illegally?
Well, if you ask me, I think people caught hunting should pay all the money they made to charities that help to protect animals. And the same for people caught buying these animal products. For example, I read that the government in Kenya took money from people who were caught buying animals' furs. The reason why is that it will help charities better protect wild animals and hopefully make hunting more difficult.
Is there anything we as individuals can do to prevent hunting?
Yes, there are many things we can do, and perhaps the most important one is to stop buying things made from animals. A good reason for this is that it might cause the demand for things made from animals to drop. For instance, many of the world's most famous fashion designers have stopped using real animal fur in their clothes.
Will there be more or less hunting in the future?
In my opinion, there will be less hunting in the future. The reason for this is that many of our animals are already close to becoming extinct, so when they are gone, there will be nothing left to hunt. By way of example, the white rhino in Africa was hunted for many years, but now there are almost no white rhinos left to hunt.